Hi everybody! For today's Field Trip Friday, we're going to explore a museum about one of my favorite artists, Frida Kahlo. And I know you guys have learned a little bit about Frida in the past, but today we're going to take a little bit of a deep dive. And spoiler alert, I've actually been to this museum in person, and this museum is all the way in Mexico City. So if we look here, we can see that this whole museum is like a big blue house. The cool thing about it being a big blue house is that this museum is actually where Frida Kahlo and her husband lived. Frida actually lived there her whole life, from the time that she was a little kid to the time that she died. So let's start in this part of the exhibit where we can actually see some of Frida Kahlo's clothing. I think that this exhibit is super cool, and it's really appropriate since we've been talking about texture this week. Clothing is something that has a lot of interesting and unique textures. And Frida Kahlo is famous for the clothing that she wore, because it was pretty unusual even for when she was wearing it. In fact, there's a fun story. A little kid once came up to Frida Kahlo on the street, looked her up and down, and said, "Where's the circus, lady?" And Frida Kahlo thought this was so funny that she wrote it down in her diary, and now we know about it years later. So here's some of her outfits. You can see that she wore a lot of long skirts and big billowy tops. There is a reason for this, but a big part of it relates to Frida's heritage as a Mexican woman. Her mom was from a place in Mexico called Oaxaca, which was famous for these types of clothing. But look at all of these textures we can see. We've got some smooth, shiny textures here in this skirt. We've got these embroidered textures here on this shirt, which would be kind of bumpy if we were going to touch it. We've got this lace texture, which I think would feel kind of bumpy too, but also smooth. And there are all sorts of artists and designers today who are still influenced by the life, work, and clothing of Frida Kahlo. Anyway, I hope that you all got to learn a little something today. I encourage you to explore this museum. There's all kinds of cool stuff. This exhibit in particular is awesome. You can see some of the corsets that she wore to help support her spine, because she was in a really bad accident as a teenager that would influence the rest of her life. Some really interesting stuff, beautiful artwork, and a really cool person. So I hope you enjoyed looking around. I enjoyed talking to you today, and I will talk to you later.